Hi everyone, welcome to Chapter 8, Nutrition and Global Health. I hope you've had an opportunity to read the text as well as this PowerPoint and the supplemental readings that I've posted in the learning module as well. I think it provides a really broad spectrum of different nutritional issues within global health. So to get started, nutrition cannot be overstated enough. The importance of nutrition is huge. It has a profound relationship with health status. Childhood underweight is the leading risk factor for death in under 5 children globally. That's pretty significant just in itself. And then when you consider 45% of all deaths in children under 5 can be contributed to nutrition-related causes, that's huge. That's too high, in my opinion. Despite that, there are some low-cost, highly effective interventions that are available to improve nutrition status. Now, that being said, you have to have a certain amount of buy-in from local, national, and global governments. So it's very easy to state that there are these highly effective interventions, but it's another factor altogether whether or not those interventions are actually available. So again, going back to the importance of nutrition, it has the picture of nutrition across the globe has changed dramatically in the last few decades. We're now seeing about 30% of the world's population in an overweight or obese status, and many of these individuals are in low and middle income countries. As we know, being overweight or obese is closely linked with many non-communicable diseases, and it makes prevention very complex. It also skyrockets the cost of treatment. And you'll kind of see why in following slides, why we've seen this global shift over to a higher population of overweight and obese. So just going through a few key terms and definitions within the chapter, and I'm not going to get terribly technical when we're talking about how they determine underweight or overweight when we're talking about Z-scores. They do have an international reference for weight for age that they use to measure this. So starting with malnutrition. Now typically when most of us think of malnutrition, we think of those that don't have enough to eat. However, malnutrition can be applied to not only those who don't get enough to eat, but perhaps those who get too much to eat or are eating the wrong kinds of things, not getting the proper nutrition from the food that they do eat. Undernutrition, the 3 most commonly used indexes for child undernutrition are height for age, weight for age, and weight for height. Underweight, so this is low weight for age. And again, getting into the technical 2 Z-scores below the international reference for weight for age. Much like our BMI tables for obesity and overweight, they do have similar tables for underweight. So a couple of terms that some of you may not be too familiar with. First one is stunting, which is the failure to reach linear growth potential because of inadequate nutrition or poor health. And then wasting, weight measured in kilograms divided by height in meters squared. See, pretty technical with the math here, that are 2 Z-scores below the international reference. These terms will come into play when we're talking about populations across the globe that may be under those that are under nutrition. So we've all seen, probably, I'm hoping, all seen the tables that are used to determine BMI. And if you would like to see the way the equation that is used to determine BMI, I'm happy to post that. Just email me or post a question on Ask My Instructor. I promise I'll be better at checking that. And I can send you the equation and different BMI tables. So overweight is excess weight relative to height. It's commonly measured by BMI amongst adults. And as you can see, anything over 25 results in one being overweight. I want to say the normal weight range is 19 to 24.9. And then anything over that 24.99, I guess, is considered overweight, obese, or morbidly obese. And then for children, again, very technical, overweight is measured as the weight for height 2Z scores above the international reference. So immediate causes of undernutrition, first of all, by and large, inadequate dietary intake. It weakens the body and opens it up to infection. Then that illness makes it harder for people to eat, thereby absorbing any nutrients that they do take in, and raises the need for additional nutrients. The relationship between these two creates a cycle of illness and infection. With overweight and obesity, the most immediate cause is an increase in total energy intake coupled with a decrease in energy expenditure. You need to burn more than you eat, basically. And as we talked about in previous weeks, genetic and cultural factors are important considerations when we talk about one's predisposition to be overweight or obese. As we examined cultural differences in health belief systems and celebrations and even eating habits, you can see how culture does have some kind of bearing, and not necessarily is the primary or key determinant, but it can exacerbate an individual's predisposition to be overweight or obese. Now, we are seeing an increase globally in overweight and obesity rates, and this is being driven by global financial and trade liberalization, increased income and socioeconomic status, as well as urbanization. So when you think about in previous decades and centuries, though we may have had some diseases that were poorly controlled at that time, we didn't really see the rates of overweight and obesity. It was a much simpler lifestyle. And when you think about individuals ate cleaner, there were not the processed foods. Sugar was considered to be a huge luxury. There weren't the chemicals added to the foods that there are nowadays. And lifestyles were much more manual, for lack of a better term. Manual labor was pretty much what everyone did, whether it was someone working as a farmer or working in a mine, or even a mother supporting the home and the family. Everything they did was much more strenuous than it is now. They didn't have gyms that people went to exercise, because everyone achieved that level of exercise just in everyday living. So, looking at the nutritional state of the world right now, the rate of underweight in children younger than 5 years of age in lower and middle income countries has fallen from about 28% in 1990 to about 17% in 2011. So pretty good change for the better. However, when you look at that and consider that there are still about 100 million children globally that suffer from moderate to severe underweight, with about 165 million of those being stunted and more than 50 million being considered in the category of wasted. So one of the things we have to look at with undernutrition is the way that deaths are associated with it. So an important risk factor for death and other causes, including diarrhea, pneumonia, measles, and other communicable diseases, is lumped right in there with undernutrition. About 3 million under 5 deaths a year can be contributed to nutrition-related causes. You would think with all of the technology and the advances we've made, that number would be so much lower, and sadly it isn't. There's so much more that needs to be done. Then looking on the other end of the spectrum, and again, you would think that we would be doing more, but we keep seeing this this huge shift to where now nearly 30% of the world's population, or about 2.1 billion people, are considered obese or overweight. Obesity has nearly doubled worldwide since 1980. And if you've had a chance to look at the supplemental reading that I've posted for this week, that Obesity in America GIF, I think, speaks volumes. The first time I saw that, I was blown away at the way that obesity rates have increased nationally. And I believe that was over, I think, an 11-year period that GIF is. Childhood obesity has emerged as one of the most serious public health challenges of the 21st century. There's so many things that can be attributed to this. So the way that our foods are made, the busyness of our schedules, the sedentary lifestyles that we now find it easy to engage in. We've become much more spread out, where we're spending more times in our cars. It's so much easier, and I will be the first to admit, and when I post my comment on the discussion board this week, you'll see I'm brutally honest with my poor eating habits. I would love to say that as a health educator that I eat great and I practice what I preach, but I am with all of you in that it is a daily struggle just trying to find time to eat, let alone eat healthy. Not an excuse, I know, but it is a reality. So the U.S. has the highest proportion of the world's obese people. Again, not surprising given that we are a higher income country and we have become much more reliant on cars, have developed more sedentary lifestyles, and we have diets that are very high in processed and sugary foods. So poor nutrition impacts maternal health, which therefore affects household income and survival and health status of children. Poor nutrition can affect children's ability to grow or achieve full intellectual capacity, impacting future prospects. Poor nutrition leads to lower productivity in adult workers. Think about this with too much to eat as well as not enough to eat. And obviously, it severely impacts life expectancy. Overweight and obesity has many associated comorbidities that have high medical costs and can trap poor households into cycles of debt and illness. When we think about the costs associated with diabetes, with high blood pressure, with high cholesterol, some of these are the comorbidities that go with overweight and obesity. Not always. I will throw a disclaimer out there that type 1 diabetes is not anything that can be prevented that we are aware of, and sometimes high cholesterol and high blood pressure is just the luck of the draw or lack thereof. My dad is one of those perfect examples of an individual who's in excellent physical shape. He is 73 years old now and probably has the energy and stamina of a 40-year-old. Has never been over about 135 pounds in his entire life and standing at a whopping 5'6". If you've ever met me, you'll understand now why I am so short. But my dad is just one of those that he has a genetic predisposition towards high cholesterol, and he eats very healthy. Never has been a big sugar eater, never has eaten a diet high in fat. And when he was diagnosed with high cholesterol, it was kind of, wow, I guess it can happen to anyone then. So going back to luck of the draw or lack thereof, overweight and obesity can affect workers' productivity, increased sick days, lack of energy while at work, as it mentions, lack of productivity. Overweight and obesity can affect mental health and is especially harmful to academic achievement of children and adolescents. So think about your own thought processes and your own learning abilities when your diet is not as it should be, whether you're not getting enough to eat or eating too much. It does really wreak havoc on our brain processes. So